right, let's try this again. Hi, good morning. This is video 895. You've watched the last one. I'm actually making the morning after last night, so I'm wearing the same clothes. But um, yeah, I want to just touch base on something that I realized. I've been reading a lot. I'm about to run a game, D&D game, set in kind of mid Bronze Age. Uh, Not necessarily Iceland, but it's based off of Vikings. I mean, Scandinavian kind of Norse mythology type game. And to prepare for it, I've done a lot of reading on Norse mythology and history, and learned a lot about the Bronze Age. It's just kind of fun stuff. I always wanted to learn. I love history to begin with. A little bit of archaeology, a little bit of anthropology, but you know, there was a shift in culture between the Bronze Age and the Iron Age. And I see some parallels today, you know, as stuff that was made in the Bronze Age, there was newer, better way of doing things in the Iron Age. I mean, it's just progress. Think about it. And I guess I see some parallels, kind of where we are maybe 10 years ago with where we might be in 20 years as far as transgender rights, gender diversity, and that kind of a thing. But if you go way, 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 way back, okay, to the Stone Age, um, predominantly you will see fertility goddesses. You'll see women, okay, as far as what we know now, or historically, figurines and everything that were fertility. Women were highly revered, highly revered. Um, you know, Women had the power, for lack of a better word. And, you know, agriculture and animals, livestock, fertility, you know, I if it wasn't focused more on the women than the men, it was kind of equal, you know. And certainly, um, as far as agriculture goes, the earth was the woman and the sky was the man. And it was thought that, the rain coming down was like semen, from the Sky Father to the Earth Mother impregnating the land. It wasn't exactly one-sided, like all women, it was kind of both. But women had a very, you know, revered. They were revered. I mean, let's face it. Um, and then as we move more into the Bronze Age and beyond, um, the idea of agriculture partnered with a little bit of pillaging, it became more productive to send a team of guys out, or a team of people, and have them pillage and bring back stuff. That's where our Vikings, that's where my game is set in. But that's kind of the development of that side of things. And so women lost a lot of power, um, because men could just take whatever they wanted at the tip of a sword blade. Um, and so women, mothers, womanhood, femininity, lost a lot of power, with the exception of being breeders. You know, uh, the saying in the movies, made up, but 300, only Spartan women can give Spartan men. You still need women as far as fertility goes, making babies, raising children. So I think kind of a bit of a division of labor that again goes way, 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 way back. Certain things were delegated to women, certain things were delegated to men. You know, um, and then going forward, obviously, Uh, I think, from the time of the Roman Senate, Christianity, God, male dominance, da 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 da, to the point that in our own history here in the United States, when the Declaration of Independence and then, the Constitution and all that, um, it was still men centered. It was still men. Men were on top. Women were relegated to childbearing and child rearing. And then men, you know what I'm saying? So I for a long time, it's been ingrained in our heads that men are just better than women, at everything except childbearing, because men can't have babies, right? And I guess, you know, as society got technological and, again, initially when you think back to the, 50s and 60s and 70s, your engineers were usually white men, were men, you know, your scientists, it just dominates the field, so what started, way back when we had, stone axes and or I guess, very basic tools, metal tools, until fairly recently. Um, you know, it's been very male dominated, been very male dominated. And so we have that ingrained in our heads as being somewhat normal, natural, the way it should be, blah, 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 blah. When in reality, you know, um, the human brain is the human brain, you know. As far as defending yourself, you know, I had heard that, a handgun was kind of called the equalizer because it didn't require, a gun doesn't require strength. I guess big guns do, but a pistol, a 9 millimeter, you can kill someone with it. A woman can take a pistol and kill a man. You know what I'm saying? So, I think that idea of men as being more valuable or better, you know, doesn't really apply much. And you'd probably say, well, duh, okay. But again, from our history, from, you know, what was, uh, 6,000 years before Christ, BCE, 6,000 back and 2,000 forward for the last 8,000 years, that's kind of the way it's been, and it's definitely changed throughout our time, my time, your time probably. Um, you know, girls and men or girls, boys or girls in a binary system, can kind of be whatever you want to be. And I think that in our area where we are now, in terms of a non binary or a gender diverse system, uh, that really fucks with people's minds. Okay. The whole controversy over, in air quotes, controversy over transgender girls playing in cis girl sports, um, you know, it's a very visceral, primal level, you know, um, statistically, it's not accurate, you know. I talked about that too. It's 12, I think on average, the studies that I've seen, is 12% difference as far as muscle mass. And, you know, you know, if, and I guess it depends on the sport you're playing too. But, for a young teen who's on blockers and then, you know, when they're 18, 19, they, you know what I mean? They don't go through that puberty, you know. But anyway, kind of getting off track. I'm sorry. Um, but this, non-binary, it fucks with things, you know. And 10, 20, 20 years from now, give it time, say 20 years. How many generations is that? I don't know. Give it, well, what do you think? 20 years a generation? 40 years. Let's do 40 years. 40 years, be safe. A parent, a child becomes a parent who has a child. That child grows up and becomes a parent. Maybe 60 years. Anyway, um, you know, what are you gonna do when you have not one gender diverse child in a school system, okay, one or two that are competing in a sports, but you have 20 or 30? What's going to happen then? You know, those lines, much like, Boy Scouting and Girl Scouting, um, Boy Scouts realized that, they can't exclude girls anymore, so that just became scouting. And you have girls who are Eagle Scouts. You Um, as you erase those lines between the two, there's just a lot of things that are going to change. And again, it reminds me back to that, not necessarily Bronze Age to Iron Age, but it's just a shift. Um, things that were outdated, didn't last. Why would you make your swords out of a weaker material? Why would you make your pots and you know, uh, technological advancements? And I'm sure that there probably were people who were like, I'm not going to change my ways. I'll take my bronze any day. My family has always had bronze. Why should we switch over to iron? But over time, that just, disappeared. So, I hope for the future. I really do. But as far as, again, our gender roles, my daughter, I hope, um, the way that we've raised her, um, there's nothing I don't think she can't do. Obviously, physically, biologically, there's some differences there. For someone who's gone through puberty and developed as far as upper body strength and, uh, you know, but it's always on the male as being the positive, right? And the female as being negative. Um, you know, some sports like gymnastics, girls have an advantage, as far as body mass and then book Starship Troopers. Uh, Robert Heinlein talks about, women make better pilots, better space pilots because of their body and padding and whatnot. Um, you know, being a woman or a girl with the body of a woman and a girl compared to a man is not always a deficit. It's just the things that we value going way, 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 way back. Man will kill other men to get stuff. We value that. Um, but you had shield maidens and every. I mean, it's like, on the one hand, mentally you're like, yeah, I guess that makes sense. The taller you are, and the stronger you are. But then there's other things like, there's certain martial art forms that being a smaller, quicker person is to your advantage. In judo, you use the momentum of your opponent against them. So anyway, and of course there's variety in all things. You can't necessarily say, there's biodiversity and whatnot, but I don't know. I saw today a little bit of a parallel, and I hope that going forward will be more and more progress and more, not only in my generation it was encouraging girls to do math and science and whatnot. Um, but I think going forward we're erasing those lines between the two. And there's some people who are definitely very much against it, very much against it, for a variety of reasons. Uh, I tend to see it as a lot of control. particularly when you get in the realm of religion. You know, one group of people who have had basically dominance for a little over 2,000 years. They're losing that dominance, and so that's why they don't like it. And unfortunately, fortunately, uh, Christianity is a very patriarchal, man-centered religion, and so I don't know what'll come in its place, if anything will. What will be you'd need a gender neutral. Uh, I mean, most modern religions have some sort of Messiah or revealed truth. Um, I know there's some, indigenous people who are two-spirited, and um, my lack of my own ignorance, Hindu, and some Hindu trans, non-binary gods, and of course you look at like Loki and Norse mythology. Loki did whatever Loki wanted to. Yeah, Loki had sex and kids as a woman. It's that's what Loki felt like, or lost a bet or did something. Loki had sex with a horse. I mean, just anyway. Um, but again, I think in our current where we're at now, um, our society really has a trouble with with men giving up their manhood for to be women, and I guess that's where trans women are transgender girls and transgender women. We're such an anathema. We're such a symbol of that, because men are supposed to be better than women. I remember again when I was 18, when I was 19, and I was 19 years old, and I presented myself to a mental health professional who was totally not prepared. And he said, why do you want to give up your power and privilege of being a man? I guess it's a good question, but that was the previous generation's bias, you know. And so yeah, why it's why we make fun of we did it one time, my lifetime. Why we made fun of, faggots and effeminate men and da da da. Nowadays, no, you don't do that. But it was breaking the masculine, some but probably toxic masculinity, but for years, decades. You Whereas if we go, 6,000 years ago, uh, you know, it wasn't that way. You I don't know. I hope, like I said, I hope in the future, again, we can have the idea that you can do whatever you want to be, no matter what's between your legs, and the shape of your genitalia doesn't decide what you do in life, doesn't decide what colors you like, doesn't decide what toys you play with. You know, um, Someone at work, I was in a meeting last week and they talked about having a gender reveal party, and it was like I was, you know, it shocked me because I had heard about him and you see him in YouTube videos, but you know, I don't know. Poo poo, ran out of steam. Um, Maybe I'll end on this thought. Um, some people think in terms of ors, and I tend to think in terms of ands. Um, you know, this last a week ago, 2 weeks ago at work, someone posted something about religion, and they wanted, it was in the Virginia State House, and they had and I may have mentioned this. I apologize if I'm repeating myself. Uh, they had a nativity scene. They had a menorah. Here in our city, they would probably have something for Kwanzaa, okay, to be inclusive. And the da 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 of Satanists group put something up, and that was the controversy. And the Christian group was like, well, that's not fair, that's not right. This December is Christmas, and that idea that something has to be one thing or another, you know. Yes, for the last, you know, 1,000, 1,600 years maybe, you've had this one thing that's evolved over time, and it was kind of the dominant. And so now when you have other things, this thing feels threatened, um, because they see it as an or. You can only believe in one thing or another. Whereas I tend to think in ands. You know, you can have Christianity and, you know, Judaism and, Eastern, you can have that and Shinto and paganism and, we to think in terms of ands instead of ors. Um, so food for thought, maybe. But hopefully, going forward, again, we won't just look at women as incubators, you know, and we won't look at men as being, uh, impregnators. But if you think about it, society's solution, uh, you know, girl gets raped, it's her fault. Look at the way she was dressed. You know, uh, if you look at my daughter's school dress code, um, you know, the boys can get away with anything. It's the girls that have, uh, girls have a length to their skirts, a length to their dresses, a length to how much skin they can show. But a boy can get away with anything, and that's something my daughter kind of addressed, and I supported her, and writing a letter to the school board here, and our society is so trained to default to blaming the woman. The woman was asking for it. Look at the way she was dressed. Um, you know, Abortion is the same way. We want to end rampant pet pregnancy. Um, you know, why does it fall on restricting the woman's rights instead of both? Or neither for that matter. You know, uh, what was it? Brave New World. I think it was Aldous Huxley. Brave New World. I think everyone was either born sterile or made sterile when they were born. Um, for the boys, it was a snip snip, and it's totally reversible, fixable. Think about that. You know, Boys could fuck as much as they want, never get anybody pregnant. Women could have sex as much as they want, never get pregnant. But instead of that, you know, you talk about sterilization of men, and it's like, oh, it's an invasion of privacy. It's an invasion of my body autonomy. But here we are going to make women. We're going to force birth women, right? Like I said, there's just such a lopsided view of things, and my hope is that I don't know. We need something else, don't we? We need another religion that's not matriarchal or patriarchal. We need a non-binary, uh, something that uh, takes the good of it. Use that term loosely. As a born again atheist, as an agnostic, I would hate to put God in a box, but the people need something to believe in. People need something to, you know, to fight the boogeymen, the darkness, things that we don't understand. I think that's kind of what religion does. Uh, we need a non-binary deity. Uh, don't know. Food for thought. Let's invent one. Let's patent it, and we'll come up with a story and everything, and see if it catches on. Right? I don't know. I think you could probably say that the early Christian church stole the Mithras was the Roman deity. I know there was one. There was an Egyptian one. I can't. Maybe that was Mithras. The child born of the sun. I mean, it's the Jesus story, but it's another religion. It's another ethnic group. Um, we need a non-binary. Who would be a good non-binary person? I don't know. I guess that'll be in the future. You know, religion has to reflect the believer for them to believe in it, right? So I guess it'll take enough non-binary or allies, and then there'll be something else. And I don't know. I'm trying to come up with a good name. I can't come up with something on the spot, you know. And there'll be, I don't know. Hmm. I have a lot of God Emperor of Dune in my head right now. The fish speakers, and the whole Duke Leto the second, I guess. He Leto the second. I apologize if you're a Frank Herbert fan. I apologize if I'm screwing this up. It's been so long. But he basically made his own religion. Um, it's blasphemy, I guess now, but you think about, again, people create something to fill a need, and if there's a need for it, enough people start to believe in it. I don't know, maybe something's already started somewhere, you know, not like the Moonies and everything, but something non-binary. I don't know. If you look at most of the like TBN and Jim Baker and them, you have someone who's masculine, and then the wife, Betty Joe, John Oliver, his Church of Perpetual Tax Exemption or something, and he was he was the leader, and I can't. Rachel Dretch was was Betty Joe, the sidekick. Anyway, I'm off track, so I'll shut up. But anyway, just to look back, maybe I look forward. Till next time, have a good day and good luck in becoming your authentic self as you define it. All right, bye bye.